This podcast is sponsored by Live.Word of Freeman J. Burns Realty. Are you looking to buy or sell a home or investment property in Charlotte, North Carolina, or any of the surrounding cities? If so, contact me. You can reach me by email at nitra@freemanjburns.com. That's Nitra, Nitra, at Freeman, the letter J, Burns.com. At Burns Realty, we are passionate about providing a world-class experience and building relationships that will last long after your real estate transaction.
Welcome to the 6th episode of
Live.Laugh.Word.
I am Chris Word.
And I'm Live.Word.
And I am very excited about today's episode.
Yes, I am.
One of the amazing things about it is that we're recording from Johannesburg, South Africa, the motherland.
Yes.
We are here. And we're also recording with some really good friends of ours. We'd like to introduce Terrell and Lola Turner.
Hey guys.
Say hello to everyone.
Tell us something about yourselves.
Hello everybody.
So we are good friends with the words, awesome followers of this great show.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, it is an honor to be here finally. We have listened to every episode and we definitely walk away with, pointers to take away from it. Hint, hint, set an expectation.
I like that.
That was definitely one we took away. But just a little bit about us. We live in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yes.
Go
We're
ahead.
within, 2 years of marriage, so definitely learning a lot from the words and having a good time exploring the world.
Yes.
Wow.
And for fun, we like to budget, do taxes, and talk about food. So we have a food blog we do. So, yeah, exciting.
I like that comprehensiveness.
Yes,
Exactly,
all-rounded.
Exactly. And we are also joined by Jeffrey and Harriet from the state of South Carolina.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Wow, we're just happy to be here. I am still kind of like y'all probably see the smile on my face, so you can hear the smile in my voice out there in podcast land. But we're excited. We've been married for 3.5 years.
Yep.
And
Still
we
together.
are
Look at that.
still
Look
together.
at
The Lord
God.
good.
Yep.
God is good.
Yes.
We have the Lampkin Law Firm together. We have the Jeffrey and Harriet Lampkin Foundation, which focuses on giving back to kids and doing
Rural
some
areas.
in rural
Yeah.
areas. So we're excited and just excited to be here.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I can't tell you all, I'm very excited about this episode. And we just met Jeffrey and Harriet today. They're good friends with the Turners, and we're all here in Johannesburg, South Africa, just exploring the country. And that brings us to our topic of the day.
Yes, we thought what better topic since we are in South Africa and it is Black History Month to bring up the discussion of what does the term African American mean to you and how do you identify with it?
That's a great term or a great topic and question. And I'll start by saying one thing that I just learned maybe 2 years ago is that African American is a very recent term. It only came about maybe in the 1980s. I think Jesse Jackson first promoted it as a way of classifying the quote-unquote Black Americans in the United States. And since then, it's taken off and become this title that we now consider ourselves.
Yes.
So now that we're in South Africa, and knowing that, well, let me back up, knowing that our history is from Africa and that we were brought over on the slave ships and went through slavery, but a lot of us here in this day and age in 2017 really don't have any connection with that part of our history and our bloodline. We know of it, we hear of it, but we struggle to identify with exactly what country in Africa we came from, what tribe we were related to. So here we are being considered African Americans in the country of the United States, but how do we identify that?
Yeah, let's punt that to our guests. What do you all think?
Yes, I'll go with Terrell. Let's bring Terrell in on the question. What do you think about the term African American?
I think my perspective is pretty interesting from growing up in a military family and moving around the world, kind of seeing different perspectives of when I met people that were from different cultures. One of the things that I noticed is that more than their skin color, they had more of a story about the geographical history, more about the tribal history. And that was no matter where I met. When I met, I guess, Samoan Americans, there was more to them than just, they had similar skin color or hair texture as other Samoans. Even when I met Africans, they knew more about, I guess, the heritage that they connected with. So for me growing up, I kind of developed this idea that, I don't know how respectful it is for me to consider myself an African American when I knew very little about Africa. I kind of saw it as I met different Africans. It was slightly disrespectful for me to connect myself with something that I really didn't know much about the African aspect. And
I agree.
even now, marrying into an African family to where my wife is half Kenyan, half Nigerian, and there is so much more to just the term or just the identity of an African that I consider myself to be an American, that I am learning more about Africa as I'm connecting.
And I actually think that's a great point. I think a lot of us, and I'll speak for myself, growing up, you believe that you're supposed to feel this inherent, I don't even know of the term that I'm looking for, but you're supposed to identify with Africa and feel like that is my motherland, and I'm supposed to wear the dashikis and wear the beads and walk around in the kente cloth and be proud, but you don't have any connection to it. And what you know or what you learn is the American culture, the society, the cultural methods, the music, and the way of life. And Africa is this idea that you struggle to identify with. As Harry, what are your thoughts on it?
I think I mirror Terrell. So I don't connect to the term African American. Mm-hmm. I'm an American who happens to be black. So in America, that has its own connotations. Okay. But as far as the African culture, coming here today, I felt amazed because it was like an ideal. So when I touched down, I was like, wow, I'm really here. Right. Yeah. But as far as being an African American, I don't see it like Terrell said because I don't really know anything about Africa, right? I had some friends in college, in undergrad, and they were from Ghana and Nigeria. So that was really my first exposure to it. So I'm interested in learning about it, but I think in America, we go off what other people say. Right. So they told us we were African American, we bought into it, but what does it mean? So we're learning as we go.
Yes. And I would actually redirect the conversation to Lola because I would like to know your thoughts, being half Kenyan, half Nigerian, and then coming to the United States. What are your thoughts in the terms African American? I'll just say that, I'll just end it there. What are your thoughts?
I feel like I'm speaking for the whole continent.
No,
because I'm outnumbered. But I think to me, being like just coming to the U.S., I think just thinking about the term African American, I always identified it as just being what it means to be black. That's just how black people are labeled in the U.S. I guess I didn't really take it personal, that you're calling yourself African American, but you don't really know anything about Africa. To me, like until I did research and kind of found out more about where the term came from and when it started, I just thought, that's always what African Americans have been called. That's always what black people have been called. But one thing I did, and I have noticed in having conversations with black Americans, is a lot of them have kind of started this conversation about, well, I'm not really African, so I no longer have to identify myself as African American. I'm black American. And I've never really understood what the difference is between that, because to me, I just see you're a black American or you're African American, and to me it's the same thing. But I have had conversations with people who kind of feel the need to distinguish it and say, I'm black and I'm not African.
And I guess that brings us to the next question of what makes us African American besides the color of our skin? Instead of saying black American or African American, why can't I just say I'm American?
I think when I think about the term African American, I just think about people that have ancestral ties to Africa. So no matter how distant they are, and I mean, I've noticed that even in my relationship with Terrell, is that, sometimes you just kind of feel like, well, you're black, you should know this. But the reality is a lot of people don't realize that being black and being African is completely different from being black and being American in terms of culture. There's a lot of things that I don't know about what it means to be black American, and just, the cultural things that come with it that Terrell knows. There are a lot of things that I identify as an African, and I will be like, you guys don't do this? He's like, nope, completely different. So I think it's really just that distinguishment of, okay, there's a huge difference, which I think a lot of people don't understand, because they look at the color of your skin and they're like, well, you're both black.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of times, you know, when people were talking to us about us getting married, you know, we really had to explain to them, you know, this is a huge cultural shock for us because I'm marrying someone who's 100% American, has never been to Africa. So he's having to learn about my culture, and I'm also, you know, having to learn about his culture because as much as I've been in the U.S. for only 10 years, I've never really been exposed to what it means to be African American or what it means to be black. So I think it's just people understanding that there are differences and appreciating that. So
is it fair to say that a lot of black / African Americans / Americans struggle with this identity crisis of who am I? What do I consider myself? Because as you said, we don't really know a lot about Africa. We don't know a lot about the culture, the history, other than what we've been taught. But the family and the traditions that are passed down, we learn the American traditions. We learn the American cultures and the societal norms. So I will honestly say that for a while, and I can even say, even here in Africa, I'm struggling with this identity crisis. I felt so proud when the guy called me, "You're my brother today," and I was like, wow. He called me his brother.
Right.
I mean, I just felt like he saw me as equal and I saw him as equal, and there is no difference of nation, there's no difference of color, there's no difference of culture.
I would like to caveat that, however.
Okay.
A lot of people that I meet in the States that are from Africa or from other places besides America that are black have a very different perception of us. I feel like they don't greet us as in "you're my brother" or see us as equal. I feel like a lot of times they see us as inferior to them, and they have preconceived notions and stereotypes of what we are and what we are not, whether they think we're not educated, we don't have any money, we don't take advantage of opportunities that are given to us in this country.
Right.
How can we, you know, break down that barrier to become more unified? I guess the question to Lola, will there ever be a moment where you will not be ashamed to identify yourself as a black American to your family and your
That's a
culture?
deep question.
that is a really deep question. That is
I mean,
a
because
really,
you have
really
black
deep
American
question.
children.
That question. I think to your point, I think it's important. And I will be honest, I'll come back to this, but I think at the end of the day, when Terrell and I have children, our children will be African American. That's
Okay.
really what they
That's
will
the
be.
true
They will be.
That's the true
That's the truth.
definition of what they're going to be.
That's the truth.
And so I think for me, I will be honest, and you know, Terrell knows this. When I first came to the U.S., I also had a preconceived notion about African Americans, and I think a lot of it is just driven by, you know, stereotypes. And I'm gonna make a stereotypic statement right now, but you know, I think Africans tend to have a lot of stereotypes among themselves. So, you know, we say Nigerians, if you're from Nigeria, you're this way. If you're from Kenya, you're this way. If you're from Congo, you're this way. So, and oftentimes, more than not, those stereotypes tend to be true. Now, sometimes you'll get it wrong, but, you know, we say, okay, you know, we know Kenyans are like this, you know, Nigerians are like that. If you're from Liberia, you're like this. And a lot of times we shape, based on those stereotypes, we shape how we see people. So until you can prove me wrong or prove me different from what my stereotype is about you, I'm going to see you as whatever I've been told.
Right.
So I think, for example, you know, when it comes to the whole African American versus black, you know, conversation versus African, I think that when Africans, at least speaking for myself, when I first came to the United States, there were, you know, kind of like, you know, how to be successful in America, if you want to call it that. Kind of like a guidebook. And one of the things that was talked about is, you know, this is the places you go, these are the people you stay away from, these are people you don't talk to. And I think subliminally, like subconsciously, one of the things that was mentioned is the stereotypes about, you know, African Americans, what African Americans do, what African Americans don't, or Black Americans,
Okay.
Black people
In
from
America.
kind of just the way that they're raised, you know, like you said, some of the things that you mentioned, they tend to be more lazy, they don't take advantage of the system, and everything that it offers, and they have all these opportunities handed to them, and kind of just trying to distinguish yourself almost in the sense if I'm not identified as African American, then I'll be fine. Like, I'm not going to be discriminated against, you know, my accent might be thick, some people won't understand me, but I'll be treated better because I'm not Black American. So I think, and Terrell can speak to this, I think a lot of what it needs is just education of even having the opportunity to interact and have conversations with people that are not like you, just in any setting.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be a conversation, like with Terrell and I, where you educate me on what it means to be Black in America, and I educate you on what it means to be an African. I think until that conversation happens, there will always be that preconceived notion about how African Americans are viewed in the eyes of Africans. And I think also flip side, because I have heard a lot of Africans who have talked about how African Americans look down on them. I have a friend who, when she first came to the United States, you know, she said they called her names like African booty scratcher, all that stuff, you know what I mean? So it's just like, go back to your country, you smell funny. So, you know, I think that it goes both ways. But I think it's just really understanding what it means. Like, what does it mean for me to be African, you know, and educate you on that. And then you educate me on what it means to be African American. Right. And we walk away having a mutual understanding versus, you know, meditating and dealing with the stereotype and not even having a conversation about it. Right. So,
Jeff and Harry, what are your thoughts?
I want to piggyback from Lola. The answer is exposure. You know, she touched on it. I'll share something, not African American, Black American, I'll share American. So I went to grad school at Penn State, Central Pennsylvania. Okay. So I had folks in my class, Penn State University Park has 50,000 students, right? So maybe 3% were African American. So I had counterparts that I met that were African, that were Caucasian, that were Asian. The only thing they knew about Black Americans was BET. So if the only thing you know as an African or as anyone about Black Americans is what you see on BET, well, that's alarming, right? I don't really watch BET programming. Right. But exposure helps you with that. So once I got to know my classmates, they're like, oh, you're really, really cool, right? And so the conversations, the education, to being around each other, I think we're very segregated in America. We are. We stick with our own, and that doesn't help us. We do. Our family has stereotypes, and you mingle amongst yourself. Education helps. You go to university, you meet other people. Cultural trips like this help, but we don't really expose ourselves, because once you get to know us, you'll see the stereotypes. It's not really like that. We're just people.
And I would say that's a great point as well, because, and I say this often, but I went to East St. Louis Senior High School. Shout out to East St. Louis. But that school, at the time that I was there, was 98% African American, Black American, and we had maybe one or two people of another race, and we knew them, we saw them. It was like, there they are walking down the hallway. I say that because when I graduated, I went to Illinois State University, and I went from being in an environment of 98% people that look like me, talk like me, act like me, enjoy the same things, to an environment where I think it was 20%, maybe even 30%. So I experienced a huge culture shock, even being at the school. Not to mention my roommate, shout out to Adam, was from Lincoln, Illinois. He's Caucasian or white, and in my most intimate environment, I'm living with someone that I probably never would have met, spoke to, talked to, became friends with. Now, over time, him and I became friends, but we also shared some of those stories of, my parents told me this, well, my parents told me this, and he was like, my parents told me that you all were going to be aggressive, or you were going to be aggressive. I'm like, aggressive? How? Where is that?
I think it's the propaganda on the media that always shows us as being violent or involved in such activities. So we have this overall notion that we are aggressive people.
Especially knowing that I was from, quote unquote, East St. Louis, and it was the inner city, and everyone in Illinois and most of Missouri knows about the city. So I came with a stereotype, and I had never met him before. So I would say that exposure, one, in that most intimate environment of our dorm room, and two, to my classmates and the other activities around the campus, really brought out the openness to myself. I was very vulnerable in a lot of ways, but I had to challenge myself to have those experiences and be up for whatever it was, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it made me a better person, and I hope that I changed someone else's opinion or made other people a better person as well. But we want to go to another question that we have?
Sure. So since we are currently here in South Africa, how do you all feel? Do you feel embraced? Do you feel like you're at home? Is it loving? Do you feel like we're accepted of the people who are here? What are the emotions that you're currently feeling in this state right now?
Jeffrey, you want to go on that?
Well, I feel a couple of ways. So I feel like I feel privileged in a way, and not privileged as if I am higher than, but I feel privileged because I can tell that they're looking at you like, wow, like they look at you in two ways.
Okay.
I've noticed that they look at you differently if you're male as versus if you're female.
Okay.
So when I walk through, like we're both walking together, they don't look at me funny.
Explain that.
Yeah. It might be the dashiki. It might be. So they don't look at me funny when I say that. So I noticed today when we were in the airport, they kept looking at my wife and they would just stare at her. And they will look her up and down. I don't know if it was because of the bag. I don't know if it was because. And what happened was I started noticing it was multiple black African. They wouldn't be American. African women. Would that be the right term for that? So I guess it was the African women, and they will look at her, and they would just like have this look almost of disdain to a degree.
Okay.
However, when we were walking side by side together, when we came down in the hotel this evening, they looked at us like very attentive. Whatever you need, we're here for you. Even out on the street, it's just like, I don't know if they look at us like they think we have money and they want to just be extra nice because they feel like they can get it. But they're very warm. I don't know, like they're very warm. They're very inviting. But I'm noticing that there's this look that they give to my wife. And, you know, just I think we all have intuition. And so my intuition tells me that based on your facial expression and because it's happening from multiple places, there is some type of negative thought that's going on in your mind. That's just me.
So, Harriet, what did you imagine that they thought? Like, what thoughts did you think were running through their heads?
Either my husband is very observant or I am very self-absorbed. So, Harriet's so great at her own mind. I didn't pay attention.
Okay.
Until he pointed it out.
Okay.
And I was like, I am seeing the faces. So I don't know what it was. I noticed it once he pointed it out. So I don't realize what was causing this. That's why I wanted to ask Lola, like, do South Africans not like Black Americans? Like, what is going on around here?
On behalf of the South African
Please
people,
speak
everybody right there. On behalf of the South African people, I don't know the answer.
Great answer.
I do not know the answer to that question. I will say one thing that I felt when I got here was I felt at home. So I felt like I was home, even though South Africa is not my home country. I did feel like, oh wow, I'm back to Mama Africa.
Right. I will say I noticed one thing with you specifically, Lola, when we're out and about, and at first when they hear your English accent or American accent, they look at you one way. But when you change to your African accent, it's like, oh, she's one of us. And it's a totally different, perception and embracing of that, which, Harriet and I are like, I am what I am. I don't have an accent.
I'm just trying to be on vacation.
I'm just on vacation. Yes, that is exactly
Right.
it. And so I definitely have noticed the difference just with the four of us being out and about and seeing the difference of how the treatment is.
And I believe that it comes across. I don't think that it's just from the African culture. I don't think that it's just from African American. Like for me, I identify as Black. That's who I am. I think that African American is a term that for me is something that was set up by the government, and I don't identify as that.
Okay.
And the only time that I use African American is if I'm on some type of platform and I want to sound official.
Okay.
Otherwise, I am Black. And within Black, we have cultural differences. We have stereotypes. I think that it's not just a Black thing. It's not just an African thing. I think it's even in white America.
Yes.
There are just cultural differences. There are stereotypes, the ways that we look at each other that.
Oh, I got something I want to share. So he talked about white Americans. So when we go on vacation, Jeffrey and I are used to white folks looking at us like, why are you here? Who are you? What do you do that you can be here?
Right.
It was shocking today to get that from Black Africans. So the feeling that I got when Jeffrey pointed out was the feeling that I get from Caucasians when we're here, there, and everywhere. And it's like, how do you guys have the audacity to be here? What are your credentials that you could be here? And that shocked me because I didn't expect that coming from Africans. Okay.
And I would say that I almost expected something like that, but I haven't experienced it. Like I said, when we went to the museum, the guy was like, "Hey, how you doing?" The only time something caught my attention was yesterday. We were in the market, and I was looking at a few things, trying to purchase something for my mother. Shout out, Moms. had to get it in. But I was looking at a bracelet, and this woman approached me, and I said, well, how much is it? She gave me the price, and tried to negotiate a little bit, got her down to a price, and I paid. So while she went away to get change, a guy walked up, and he was like, oh, you like that? Oh, this is the price. And it was higher than the price that she originally told me. So I'm like, I don't know if the price increased because I'm a tourist and this is a tourist trap and you think you got me, or because I'm an American and you think I'm coming with some more money or have more money to pay. But I did notice that, and I was like, that's weird. I'm glad I got the price she said before he came over trying to gouge me for this price. But overall, I can say I haven't experienced that to that degree. I don't know if anyone else has noticed anything.
I would say for me, I haven't really noticed anyone look at me. I guess I wouldn't call it looking at me different or looking at me as if I don't belong. One thing I have noticed is when we do go through stores or we go out to eat to restaurants, I have noticed people looking at me. And I would say maybe this is just because of my experience of when I lived in Brazil. I kind of went through the same thing to where I ended up talking to some of the people who were looking at me. And one of the things that I realized is that they were looking at me more so because they were out of curiosity. They're curious of who I was, what I was doing there, or where I was from. I mean, and here I've worn a shirt that had something written on it, so maybe in my naivety, I'm thinking, okay, they're just reading my shirt or whatever. Mm-hmm. But even as we've interacted with some people, you get to talk to them, and for me, what I begin to realize is that, these people are dealing with some of the same basic life issues that anybody else is dealing with. And when you begin to connect with them on a person-to-person level, even just in casual conversation, because even when we were in the Apartheid Museum today, just encountering different people, whereas you just laugh or you make a joke with them, and it was like immediately barriers went down, right? Yes. And it was just like this connection where they're no longer looking at me curious, wondering how is he going to treat me, right? And so that's kind of how I look at it when people are staring at me. I think maybe, like I said, maybe this is me just being naive. I look at it as he's wondering how am I going to treat him, or she's wondering what does he think about me, or what is his impression. He doesn't look like he's from here. What does he think about us? Right. And once I begin to interact with people, you see those barriers come down. And you see, you know what? He's a person just like me. He doesn't sound like me. He talks with an American accent. I don't necessarily think I have an accent. I think they have an accent. Right.
I agree. Right. So American right now.
But like I said, I think that once, I begin to connect with people, and I haven't done that with every person we met, but the people that I have in passing, when we went to the market and just walking by, just connecting with people, like, hey man, that looks good. And in his accent, he started talking about how good it looked. He's talked about how good my food looked. And it's, I guess he realized that, hey, you know what? He's a person that's just like me. Right. He just sounds different.
Right. That's true. That's true.
And one thing, sorry to cut you off, Chris, but one thing that I would say that I actually just thought about is cultural differences. Because in America, if somebody's staring at you, that's rude. Like, there's certain things you do and don't do, like, but in Africa, or let me speak for Nigeria and Kenya, like if someone's staring at you, you make a joke and be like, what you looking at? You know what I mean? Like it's more, you break the ice and be like, brother, can I help you with something? Or, and I think like, for example, in Nigeria, people tend to be more vocal. Okay. So if I'm very vocal about, who you are, what you're doing or whatever, it's not necessarily offensive. It's just that's how I interact with you. But if you're not from that culture, you might take it a certain way. So maybe those women were looking at you like, I'm curious about, are they American or where are they from? Or maybe they were just looking at you and maybe just wanting some sort of acknowledgement. Maybe if you said, hey, how's it going? That whole idea that you get might change and they'll be like, oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm gonna try that tomorrow.
Because one thing that I did notice is for places that we went to, they were speaking to us in Zulu. Like when they greeted us, they would greet us in Zulu,
Yes.
or they would greet us in Twasa or whatever. To where I'm like, okay, we haven't even opened our mouth, so they're assuming we're South African,
Right.
Because they're acknowledging us with a traditional greeting.
Yes,
Right.
That's true.
And then they didn't turn to English until after. I mean, there were even some people who, even after I spoke English to them, they would still turn around and speak Zulu. And I'm like, I have no idea what you said. So I think a lot of it is just once you get, like Terrell said, once you get past that point
I agree.
of, just I'm going to interact with you, I'm going to assume the best here. And, if you still try to, act a certain way, then I know it's for a different reason. And then I move it and keep going.
Right.
So that's one thing that I would say on behalf of the continent of on behalf of my people. Speaking for the South Africans. But yeah, continue.
Well, that moves us into.
Oh, I do want to mention one other thing.
Yes.
Before we go to the wrap up, I do want to say one thing that I think is very interesting, and this goes back to the identity crisis topic and kind of where do you find yourself. So I did a little research on basically job applications and a lot of things where you have to classify yourself. And in America, they want you to do it because they're trying to figure out demographics of who's applying for what or getting what. But at the end of the day, when you go to mark those boxes, if you look at the definitions for a lot of the classifications, one struck me as interesting. So for Americans or Black Americans, it is either Black/African American or Black. And sometimes it doesn't even say African American, but the definition for that in a lot of the government official documents is that person identifies with a Black racial group of Africa. So when I read that, I'm thinking, well, what is a Black racial group of Africa? Because I did not know that there were any races in Africa, and if there even are, which one do I associate with? I have none, because I don't know that distant part of my past, my ancestry. So if anything, I know that there are tribes, but that's not a racial group. So if you're going off of the technical definition, then that doesn't really qualify, or I can't classify myself as this. So then what do I classify myself as? I mean, the nearest thing that you can say would be white, which sounds weird, but it says that your origin is North African or Africa. So if we're from slavery and from the African continent, which we have been told that we are, then we can say that we are white just based on that definition alone. So there are others, I mean, Pacific Islander, the other things I won't mention. But if you're looking at those two, Black doesn't qualify because what is a racial group of Africa? Can someone tell me the list and someone help me explain which one am I? And then two, white more so qualifies, but it's only because that's what I've been told about slavery and the travel across the continent on slave ships.
Or you can check other.
Or you check other, but then they sometimes ask you, well, what is other? And then you get into that whole debate, or you do, right? Or you do that. I choose not to answer this question.
Right.
And you kind of leave it there. But I just think that is very interesting. A lot of people just check it just off of habit or because they immediately go to I'm African American, but they don't think about what that definition means or where they're going.
I will say I check other and then I write African in the box. I'm just gonna say that.
Okay.
I just have to make it known.
I love it.
Well,
Yes.
we'll do a quick wrap up and say initial thoughts or anything that's still in your mind from your first day or 2 days.
And what
in
have you
Africa.
enjoyed so far for our wrap up while being here for our first 1 to 2 days here in South Africa?
While everyone else thinks, I'm going to say, because I have something on my mind. I have really enjoyed Jacob, our tour guide.
Our tour guide,
These are
yes.
awesome.
If you ever come to South Africa, look him up on Instagram. I think it's just_J7, I believe. If you go to our Instagram page, Live.Laugh.Word, he's one of our friends. You can find him there. But he is giving us a truly amazing experience
He
for
has.
the 2
Tourist
days we're
stuff.
out here. None of the tourist stuff, just straight. I'm going to take you to the places where I go and I hang out. And we spent 2 days riding around almost every part of Johannesburg or some part of Johannesburg, and it has been amazing. Shout out, Jacob.
Shout out.
All right, next up.
I would say, my impression, one thing I've really enjoyed is, we came in, or I guess we actually got out and about on a Saturday and a Sunday, And one of the things that I really enjoyed is as we've gone to different places is to see people really enjoying themselves. Like every restaurant we've gone past and even some of the stores, seeing people just out and about enjoying time with their friends. And maybe it sticks out to me because I'm on vacation and it helps me get out of work mode. But I really enjoy seeing that everywhere we go where people are meeting up with their friends. Even today, I mean, which was, a little surprising when we went into the townships. And I guess at a very quick explanation, when many people that don't understand townships is during apartheid, those that were black were pushed out of the city into what they call townships, and so the population there is probably 98% black. But just even when we were in the townships, just to see people who were black and white just sitting, enjoying, having a meal together, laughing, and just like I said, really seeing people enjoy their time and enjoy the people that they were around. They didn't really look like they were worried about, hey, work is coming on Monday, or hey, this is going on. They were really enjoying themselves, and I've really enjoyed seeing that, and it's helped me get into vacation mode a lot faster.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep. I think one thing, just to kind of add to what Terrell said, I think that's exactly kind of my thing is, and I noticed this also when I was in Kenya, is just people hustle. Like, it's not like they don't work hard. They hustle. Like, we saw different people selling stuff on the street.
Yes.
Like that guy that was selling a heater in the summertime. So, people hustle. And they really, they work hard. But they also take time to relax and enjoy life. And I think for me, that's one thing that, I think a lot of times in the U.S. we're so focused on, I don't know, I just feel like we're tense. We don't talk to each other on the train.
Right.
You see someone in the store, you don't even say hi to them. You don't acknowledge them. It's just like, there's just so much about life to enjoy. And I think one of the things I really love about just coming home to Africa and South Africa is, people work hard and people hustle and they do all this stuff, but they take moments to enjoy life, and you see them, and they really make the best out of no matter how small the moment is. I mean, even we went out to grab some food in town or whatever before we came back here, and it's just a lounge, and people were eating, but you could see people were laughing and having such a great time. And the guy was like, if you want to get up and dance, you can do that right there. You're not concerned about what people think, or you got to be politically correct when you do certain stuff. It's just kind of like that freedom to just really enjoy time and just enjoy life. And I think that's what I really love about it.
Right.
So we've been here a day, but in the one day that I've been here, and this has been profound for me. So I like that South Africa is progressive and dope. Sometimes what we see of Africa in the United States is not a good picture. It's not a good picture. Jeffrey, I put up here, we were coming to Africa. Some of the things that people told us, I'm not gonna call it crazy. My mom said people say certain things because of lack of knowledge.
Right.
Africa is awesome.
Yeah.
It is.
Johannesburg, the city, dope. Can't wait to get to Cape Town. So I wish that America did a better job of displaying how wealthy this continent is, how progressive these cities are, how much awesomeness is going on. Because in the little bit of time that we've been here, it's so obvious.
Yes.
It's so obvious.
Yep.
All right, Jeff, you're up.
I will agree. It's a freedom here. You don't have to be politically correct. You can just kind of do you and be who you are. And if anyone looks at you, you just keep doing what you do and be who you are.
Yes.
And it's okay. I think the other thing for me is the fact that I just kind of believe that the media shows what they want people to see.
Right.
If we think about it, even in the States, they show the part of Black America so they would not show that there are 6 Black people at a table.
Right.
Educated. From the state. They wouldn't show that.
Yes.
But they would show in the streets of Chicago, while it is true, but that's what we highlight instead of highlighting a variety. So even in Johannesburg, I will say I know that people that there's poverty in certain areas, and there are things but you can tell appreciation, like Lola said, these people are out here working. They're happy about being at work. They are excited. They're out there, and it's like the waitress came to us. She was like, we're about to go. We're like, oh no, we got to tip you. And it was like, come take a selfie with us. And she just like, everybody's just happy.
Yes.
And I think that's a beautiful thing when you're not so stressed out about trying to prove yourself to the next person or the next individual.
That's true. My love.
I have enjoyed everything about my first 2 days in Johannesburg. One thing I have enjoyed a lot is that I'm in a place where I feel like I'm part of the majority. When we walk into restaurants, there are people who look like me. When I turn on the TV, there are people who look like me. And I just feel like, wow, this is amazing. I don't feel like an outsider. I just feel like this inclusiveness in this environment. And I'm loving it. And I'm really enjoying myself.
It's very mentally stimulating when you see images like that all the time. I don't know, it brings down that wall, it brings down that defense, and you're able to just relax, like Terrell and Lola mentioned, and just kind of be. So I think we've come to the end. I think we're reaching 40 minutes, the end of our sixth episode.
And I want to say thank you to our guests for joining us today.
Yes,
and everybody tell the audience where they can follow you at. Turners?
For the Turners, you can follow us at, we actually launching a food blog, so you can follow us at Around the World Cooking, or you can follow us at Bella Negra, BELANEGRA. That's my Instagram. And Terrell.
Yeah, just follow us at one of those two.
Terrell did not shout out his Instagram, but it's okay. I got you covered, boo. I got you covered.
Jeffrey Harry.
Go ahead, babe.
You can follow us, thelampkinlawfirm.com. Listen, South Carolina.
.net.
Lampkinlawfirm.net.
Yeah.
All your law needs, find us. And then the Jeffrey Lampkin Show, Jeffrey Lampkin. Everything is Jeffrey Lampkin. It's either simple, Jeffrey Lampkin. You find Jeffrey Lampkin, you'll find Harriet, which is what everybody does anyway. You find Jeffrey, you'll find Harriet.
Well, as always, you can find the words at Live.Laugh.Word on Instagram and our YouTube channel, where we'll be posting this very soon. If you have any questions, comments, or future topics, email us at live.laugh.word@gmail.com.
Yes.
That's it.
Well, thank you guys for listening.
All right. Talk to you later.
See you next week.
Peace.
Bye.